Landing a high-performance fighter jet on a conventional runway is a routine skill. Landing that same aircraft on a moving aircraft carrier at night, in the middle of a storm, is a controlled crash. Welcome to the night trap, the most unforgiving environment in modern aviation. You are returning from a grueling 6-hour combat air patrol. Your fuel reserves are dangerously low, you are exhausted, and your adrenaline is flatlining. Below you sits the USS Nimitz, a 97,000-ton nuclear-powered carrier. But right now, it isn't a stable piece of steel. It is pitching up and down violently in 15-foot swells, rolling side to side, and steaming into a 30-knot headwind. To make matters worse, your primary instrument landing system, the automated system that guides you down through the soup, just suffered a total electrical short. You are flying blind through the rain, relying entirely on your eyes and a system of colored lights. You have exactly one chance to trap. If you come in too low, you will smash directly into the steel ramp of the carrier's stern, a fatal accident known as a ramp strike. If you come in too high, your tailhook will skip right over the arresting wires, forcing you to eject into a pitch-black, freezing ocean with zero guarantee of rescue. The deck is moving, the fuel is vanishing, and the LSO is screaming over the radio. What will you do? Before you pull the stick to line up your approach, you must understand the mathematical physics of a naval landing. Unlike an airfield, you do not flare a jet before touching down on a carrier. You do not try to land softly. You flare to survive, but on a carrier, you drop the aircraft out of the sky like a rock, slamming the landing gear into the deck at over 140 miles per hour to ensure the tailhook catches. The angled flight deck. Look closely at the carrier's layout. You are not landing straight down the length of the ship. You are landing on an angled deck canted at roughly 10 degrees to the left. This design allows aircraft to safely accelerate and fly off the front if they miss a wire. However, it creates a massive optical illusion. Because the ship is constantly moving forward at 25 knots, the runway is literally sliding away from you to the right as you approach it. To stay lined up, you cannot fly a straight line. You have to fly a continuous, gentle crab angle into the wind, constantly adjusting your drift. The meatball geometry. Look to the left of the landing area. That stack of lights is the Fresnel lens, affectionately called the meatball. It is your absolute lifeline. A horizontal row of green datum lights tells you where the ideal glide slope is. A central amber light, the ball moves up and down depending on your aircraft's position. If the amber ball is above the green lights, you are too high. If it drops below them, you are dangerously low. If it turns red, you are about to die. On a pitching deck, the meatball is moving up and down because the ship is riding the waves. You aren't chasing a fixed point. You are chasing a moving target through a lens of distorted rain. The target wire. There are 4 arresting cables, spaced about 30 feet apart. Your goal isn't just any wire. Your target is the number 3 wire. The number 1 wire, closest to the edge, is too dangerous because it brings you too close to the stern ramp. The number 4 wire means you floated too far down the deck. The number 3 wire is the sweet spot of naval aviation. But to hit it, your tailhook must clear the ramp by a mere 14 feet while the ship's stern is rising and falling like a roller coaster. You are 3 miles out, dirty configuration meaning your gear is down, your flaps are full, and your tailhook is extended. The turbulent wake of air behind the carrier's island is buffeting your wings. You have 3 ways to handle this approach. Option A, the high glide safe float. You choose to play it safe. You keep the amber ball slightly high on the lens, deliberately staying above the ideal glide slope. This guarantees that your cockpit and landing gear will safely clear the terrifying steel ramp at the back of the ship. The logic is survival-focused. Avoid the ramp strike at all costs. But the consequence is a bolter. By coming in high, your tailhook will drop past the 4th wire without touching a thing. Because your fuel is sitting at 1,500 pounds, a bolter means you will run completely dry on your climb back up into the pattern. You will be forced to eject into the freezing, stormy wake of the carrier, hoping the rescue helicopter can spot your strobe light in the dark. Option B, the automated throttle gamble. You rely on your aircraft's software. You engage the automatic throttle control, ATC, allowing the computer to instantly adjust engine RPM to maintain your optimum angle of attack while you focus purely on steering the nose. The theory is that the machine can react faster than human muscle to the turbulent air pocket behind the ship. The risk, however, is the delay. On a pitching deck, the ship can drop 10 feet in a split second. The automated system reacts to the air pressure and airspeed, not the visual state of the deck. If the ship's stern heaves upward just as the computer cuts power to maintain airspeed, the jet will be driven straight into the steel ramp before the engines can spool back up. Option C, The manual deck peak slam. You take absolute manual control. You override the automation, keeping your left hand on the physical throttle and your right hand on the stick. You attempt to time the wave. You watch the horizon and the ship's movement, trying to predict when the stern will drop so you can chop the power and slam the aircraft onto the deck exactly as the ship reaches the trough of a wave. The danger is human error. Trying to time a 90,000-ton ship in a storm creates massive cognitive overload. If you miscalculate by even half a second, you will either pancaking the aircraft onto the deck, collapsing your nose gear, or you will drop below the glide path into the black void behind the ship. In naval aviation, you don't try to outsmart the ship, and you don't fly defensively. You choose the definitive solution, the active throttle wave. You don't look at the deck. Looking at the deck is a fatal mistake known as spotting the deck. If you look at the steel, your brain will naturally try to make a smooth landing, causing you to float past the wires. Instead, you lock your eyes entirely on the meatball and the LSO's voice in your ear. You do not keep your throttle steady. You aggressively pump the power. You anticipate the turbulent airdrop behind the ship by adding a burst of military power a second before you hit the turbulent wake, then instantly pulling it back as you clear the dirty air. You control your altitude purely with your left hand on the engine power, using the right hand on the stick only to keep the aircraft's nose perfectly centered on the centerline. The master move. The moment your wheels touch the steel deck, you do not brake. In fact, you do the exact opposite. The millisecond you feel the heavy impact of touchdown, you slam the throttles forward into full afterburner. To a civilian, adding full power when trying to stop sounds insane, but this is the golden rule of the carrier. If your tailhook missed the wires, your engines are already screaming at maximum thrust, giving you the speed to blast off the front of the angled deck and fly back into the air, instead of plunging off the bow into the water. But tonight, you don't fly off. The heavy steel cable of the number 3 wire catches your tailhook. It stretches out across the deck, absorbing millions of foot-pounds of kinetic energy, pulling your 7-ton fighter to a dead stop in just 230 feet. You cut the throttles to idle. Your fuel gauge reads less than 900 pounds. You had enough gas for exactly 45 seconds of flight time. You look out the canopy as the yellow-shirted flight deck crew runs toward your aircraft, guiding you to raise your hook and fold your wings so the next hungry jet can attempt the trap. You didn't look at the deck, you didn't trust a slow computer, and you didn't float out of fear. You flew the ball all the way to the steel. The ocean tried to push the ship away, but your precision locked you down. Would you have had the nerve to slam the throttle to full afterburner while hitting a dark deck in a storm? The carrier doesn't accept compromises, it only accepts perfection. Tell us your landing strategy in the comments below. This has been Military Dilemma. Stay sharp, stay alive.